My mom demanded I pay for my brother's engagement. I said yes, and I meant something completely different than what she thought. My name is Claire Whitfield. I'm 29, an accountant in Columbus, Ohio, and according to my family, I'm the responsible one. That title has followed me my entire life. My younger brother, Tyler, could miss deadlines, wreck cars, quit jobs, and somehow still be treated like the family's golden child. I was the one expected to clean up afterward. Then, during dinner one Friday night, Mom put down her wine glass and announced, "Tyler and Brooke are officially engaged." Everyone smiled. Then she looked directly at me. "You're going to handle the engagement party, sweetheart. 15,000 should cover it. You're the one with the stable job." She didn't ask. I set down my fork. "Okay," I said calmly. "I'll take care of it." Mom smiled, satisfied. But she had no idea what I meant. Because in that exact second I had already decided where every dollar would go. Eleanor had always been the one person in our family who never needed to be asked to show up. When I was little, she would sit behind me at the kitchen table, patiently separating the tangles in my hair while I complained that the brush hurt. "Beauty requires sacrifice," she'd say. "Then I choose ugly." She would laugh so hard she'd have to put the brush down. Eleanor taught me more than how to braid hair. She taught me how to stretch a dollar, how to keep receipts, and how to make a grocery list before walking into a store. "Money disappears when you don't give it a job," she told me once, tapping 3 quarters against the table. Remember that? I did. What I never learned was how to stop feeling guilty when I couldn't give enough. Now Eleanor lived in a nursing facility that smelled faintly of disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. The hallway lights buzzed overhead, and the paint around the doorframes was chipped from years of wheelchairs and carts scraping past. I visited every Sunday. That afternoon I sat beside her bed and adjusted the blanket around her knees. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine." "That means you're tired." I smiled. "You always did hate being lied to." "I hate boring lies. Interesting ones are different." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. The facility wasn't terrible. It was simply underfunded, understaffed, and nothing like the place Eleanor deserved after spending her life taking care of everyone else. Marcus had watched me carry that guilt for years. That evening when I got home, he found me sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. The engagement party spreadsheet filled the screen. Venue, $4,800. Catering, $3,200. Flowers, $1,400. Photography, $1,100. Music, decorations, transportation, upgrades. The numbers kept climbing. Marcus leaned against the counter. "You're doing the math again." "I'm always doing the math." He looked at the screen. "How much is this thing supposed to cost?" $15,000. He was quiet for a moment. "And Eleanor?" I stared at the spreadsheet. That was the question nobody in my family seemed interested in asking. I thought about the facility. Then I looked at Tyler's growing list of demands. Somehow there was always money for Tyler. I closed the laptop. For the first time, the numbers weren't just numbers. They were a choice. I had already agreed to pay for Tyler's engagement party, but I hadn't agreed to hand Mom a blank check. If she thought, "I'll take care of it," meant she could keep adding expensive upgrades until the bill reached whatever number she wanted, she was about to learn how carefully I listened to my own words. The next morning I opened my laptop, created a new spreadsheet and listed every expense myself. Venue, catering, flowers, music, photography, invitations, transportation. I contacted each vendor personally and made it clear that every decision would come through me. When Mom called, she sounded pleased. "I spoke to the venue," she said. "They have a better package with upgraded decorations." "I already handled the venue." There was a pause. "You did?" "Yes." "Well, I thought I should have some input." "You can send me your preferences. I'll review them." Her voice tightened. "Claire, this is Tyler's engagement party." "I know." What I didn't tell her was that I had already started moving money away from the things nobody needed. The premium floral package became a simpler arrangement. The unnecessary transportation upgrade disappeared. The decorative extras were cut. I wasn't making the party cheap. I was making it reasonable. And every dollar I saved went into a separate account I had opened for Eleanor's care. I spent that afternoon researching better facilities, comparing staffing levels, rooms, activities, and medical support. One name kept appearing at the top of my list. It was warmer, cleaner, and properly staffed. It was also expensive. But suddenly $15,000 didn't look like an impossible number. Aunt Patricia noticed something was different when she visited Eleanor that Sunday. She sat across from me watching as I helped Eleanor with her tea. "You've been making phone calls," Patricia said. I looked up. "A few." "About Eleanor?" I hesitated then nodded. Patricia studied my face. "What are you planning?" "Something I should have planned a long time ago." She didn't press me. Meanwhile, Mom kept calling about the party. "Brooke wants upgraded centerpieces." "No, Tyler thinks the photographer should stay longer." "No, Claire, you're making this difficult." I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen and quietly entered another payment for Eleanor's future care. "No," I said. "I'm making it mine." Brooke had a way of making requests sound like they had already been approved. At the planning lunch, she stirred her iced tea and glanced at the venue brochure I had brought with me. "I was thinking we could upgrade the rooftop package," she said. "The lighting in the photos would be so much better." I looked at her. "The current package already includes lighting." "I know, but I mean the really nice lighting." She smiled. "Since you're paying anyway." I felt my fingers tighten around my water glass. She said it so casually as if my bank account were another member of the family. "I'll look into it," I said. Brooke immediately brightened. "Perfect." "No thank you." No hesitation. Not even a question about whether I could afford it. Just another expectation. A few days later we met at the venue for a tasting. Plates arrived one after another while the coordinator explained the menu. I tried to discuss the budget but Dana interrupted me. "Claire, we already decided the appetizers. Tyler wants the larger selection." Tyler nodded. "It'll make the party feel more impressive." I looked at the prices printed on the menu. The upgrade adds almost $800. Brooke shrugged. "It's an engagement party. We're only doing this once." I opened my mouth, but Dana was already discussing flowers with the coordinator. My opinion had become background noise. When there was finally a pause, I said, "I also wanted to talk about Grandma." Dana's expression changed immediately. "What about her?" "I've been looking at another facility. It's better staffed and they have more activities in private rooms." "We'll deal with that later," she said. I stared at her. "Later?" "Yes, Claire. This party is what matters right now." Something inside me went very still. Eleanor had raised us. She had packed our lunches, helped with homework, sat through fevers, and made sure we had clean clothes when Mom was working late. Yet somehow, an evening of flowers, appetizers, and upgraded lighting mattered more than where she spent the rest of her life. I looked around the table at Dana, Tyler, and Brooke. For years I had wondered how they could overlook her. Now I understood. They weren't overlooking Eleanor. They were choosing not to see her. And for the first time I stopped trying to make them understand. I found out about the money by accident. Tyler called me while I was driving home from work, and I answered through the car's hands-free system. "Hey Claire, did Mom tell you about the old account?" "What account?" There was a pause. "The one Grandma had." "From Grandpa." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. "What about it?" "I thought you knew." "Knew what, Tyler?" He sighed. "There was money set aside for Grandma. Grandpa left it for her care. Mom managed it after he died." I pulled into a parking lot and stopped the car. "How much?" "I don't know. Maybe 20-something thousand." I stared through the windshield. "And where is it now?" Another pause. "Claire, don't make this into a thing." "Tyler." "She used some of it for me." "For what?" "My car. Rent mostly. Couple of debts. Stuff like that." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Did Mom tell you to tell me this?" "No. I just assumed you already knew." I ended the call without saying goodbye. For several minutes I sat there with the engine running, staring at nothing. 20-something thousand dollars. Money Eleanor's husband had left specifically so she could be comfortable in her final years. Money that could have paid for a better facility. Money that could have given her choices. Instead, it had disappeared into Tyler's life, one expense at a time. And I had spent years believing my family simply couldn't afford to do more for Eleanor. I drove to her facility without thinking about where I was going. When I parked, I didn't get out immediately. I put my forehead against the steering wheel and the tears finally came. I cried for Eleanor. I cried for the little girl who had watched her grandmother sacrifice everything and somehow believed she still wasn't doing enough. Most of all, I cried because I finally understood the pattern. Tyler needed something and everyone found a way. Eleanor needed something and everyone found an excuse. My phone buzzed. Marcus. I answered, but for several seconds I couldn't speak. He didn't ask me to explain. He simply said, "You keep waiting for them to see her." I wiped my face. What am I supposed to do? His voice was quiet. Make them see her instead. I looked toward Eleanor's window. And for the first time I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't confront my family that night. I didn't call Mom, demand answers, or tell Tyler what I had learned. I knew exactly what would happen if I did. They would argue, deny, explain, and somehow turn the conversation into a debate about whether I was being unreasonable. I wasn't interested in another argument. I wanted them to understand what they had spent years refusing to see. So I finished the party. I called the venue coordinator and confirmed every detail. The flowers were ordered. The catering was finalized. The photographer was booked. The lighting stayed exactly as planned, except for the unnecessary upgrades Brooke had requested. I paid every invoice myself just as I had promised. Then I made one private phone call. "Hi, this is Claire Whitfield. I'm calling about the engagement party next Saturday." The coordinator recognized my name. "Of course. Is there something you'd like to change?" "Yes. I'd like to add a short tribute during the toasts." "A tribute? To my grandmother, Eleanor?" There was a brief pause. "Absolutely. What did you have in mind?" "I want a short video played first. Then I'd like a few minutes to speak." "I can arrange that. Please don't mention it to my mother." The coordinator hesitated. "Understood." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and selected photographs of Eleanor. There was one of her holding Tyler when he was a toddler, his tiny hand gripping her necklace. Another showed me sitting beside her at the kitchen table, counting coins while she watched me with that patient smile. I stared at those pictures for a long time. Then I turned to the other part of my plan. I had already spoken with the new facility. Eleanor's room was reserved. Her transfer was scheduled for the week after the party. I had paid the deposit and arranged for transportation, medical records, and everything else she would need. The money had come from the savings I created by cutting the party's unnecessary expenses. Not $1 had been taken from the amount I promised to spend. I simply stopped spending it on things that didn't matter. When Marcus came over, I showed him the confirmation papers. He read them carefully. "You actually did it." "I did. What are you going to tell them?" I closed the folder. "Nothing." He studied me. "You're sure?" I nodded. For once, I didn't need anyone's permission. The party would be beautiful. Tyler would get the celebration everyone expected. But Eleanor would finally get something my family had spent years telling themselves they couldn't afford. A choice. And when the microphone was placed in my hands, everyone would hear exactly who had paid the real price. By the night before the engagement party, everything was ready. The rooftop venue had been transformed with strings of warm lights, tall flower arrangements, and neatly arranged tables overlooking the Columbus skyline. I had spent weeks making sure every detail was handled, and somehow after all the cutting and negotiating, the party still looked exactly like the celebration Dana wanted. Tyler and Brooke arrived for the final walkthrough, practically glowing with excitement. "This is perfect," Brooke said, turning in a slow circle. Tyler grinned. "Claire really pulled it off." Dana smiled proudly. "I always knew she would. I raised such a generous daughter." I looked at her. The words landed harder than they should have. Generous. That was what she called me when she wanted something. Responsible when she needed something. Reliable when someone else had made a mess. Never tired. Never hurt. Never overlooked. I smiled anyway. "Glad you like it." Dana squeezed my arm. "I knew I could count on you." I gently moved away. "Of course." She didn't notice. Nobody did. Later, while the staff finished arranging the tables, I found Dad standing near the edge of the rooftop. Robert had always been quieter than Mom, the kind of man who could watch an argument unfold and somehow convince himself that staying silent meant staying neutral. He looked toward the city. "You did a good job," he said. "Thanks." He nodded, then glanced at me. "Your grandmother would have." He stopped. I waited. "Would have what?" He rubbed his thumb against the edge of his watch. Nothing. No. You started saying something. He looked uncomfortable. She deserved better, he finally said. I swallowed. Yes. She did. He opened his mouth again but no words came. That was the problem with my family. Everyone seemed to know the truth. Nobody wanted to be the first person to say it. I left the rooftop soon after and drove straight to Eleanor's facility. Her room was dim except for the small lamp beside her bed. She looked up when I walked in. You're late, she said. I know. Trouble? Not exactly. I sat beside her and took her hand. Her fingers were thin and warm. Big party tomorrow? She asked. Very big. Your brother must be excited. He is. She smiled. I looked at her for a moment, fighting the urge to tell her everything. Instead I squeezed her hand. Tomorrow's going to be different, I whispered. I promise. Eleanor studied my face. Claire. Yeah. What have you done? I smiled through the tears gathering in my eyes. Something I should have done a long time ago. She didn't ask again. I stayed beside her, holding her hand, listening to the faint sounds of carts moving down the hallway. Tomorrow, everyone would finally hear her name. The engagement party began beneath a canopy of string lights, with the Columbus skyline glowing beyond the rooftop railing. An enormous engagement sign hung above the flowers, and every table was covered with candles, polished glasses and carefully folded napkins. I stood near the entrance as guests arrived, accepting compliments I didn't feel comfortable accepting. This is beautiful, one of Brooke's relatives told me. Thank you, I said. Across the room, Tyler and Brooke laughed together while Dana moved from table to table, greeting guests as if she had personally organized every detail. Then the champagne started flowing. The first few toasts were exactly what I expected. Tyler's friends teased him. Brooke's parents talked about how perfect the couple looked together. Dana raised her glass and said, "To my son and his beautiful fiancée, and to family." Everyone applauded. I smiled politely. Then the coordinator stepped toward the microphone. Before we continue with dinner, Claire has arranged a special tribute. Dana turned toward me. Her smile disappeared. I walked to the microphone. The room quieted. The first photograph appeared on the screen behind me. Eleanor. She was sitting at our old kitchen table, smiling at the camera with her hands folded in front of her. A second photograph appeared. Eleanor holding Tyler as a baby. Then another of me beside her, both of us laughing. I heard someone whisper, "Who is that?" "My grandmother," I said. My voice shook. She raised my brother and me. The screen changed again. This time it showed Eleanor in her current room. The room became completely silent. She spent years taking care of us, I continued. She made sure we had food, clean clothes, help with homework and someone waiting when we came home. I looked at Tyler. He wasn't smiling anymore. She gave our family everything she had. I paused. And when she needed us, we told ourselves there wasn't enough money. Dana shifted in her chair. I continued before she could speak. Tonight we spent thousands of dollars celebrating one evening. 4 years, we couldn't find enough money to give Eleanor the care she deserved. Someone lowered their champagne glass. Another guest looked toward Dana. The silence grew heavier. I could hear my own breathing. I had imagined this moment dozens of times. I had imagined being calm, prepared, untouchable. Instead my eyes filled with tears. I looked at the screen one last time. I just wanted everyone here to know the name of the woman who made this family possible. My voice broke. Her name is Eleanor. And then the tears finally came. My tears kept falling but I didn't wipe them away. For years, I had swallowed every uncomfortable truth because I was afraid of what would happen if I finally said it out loud. Standing there with the microphone in my hand, surrounded by people who had just watched my family celebrate, I realized I was done protecting everyone from the consequences of their own choices. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice trembling. "I know this isn't what anyone expected tonight." Dana immediately leaned toward me. "Claire. Not here." I looked at her. "Where then?" Her face tightened. "This is Tyler's engagement party." "I know." "Then please stop." I took a breath. "I paid for this party." A few people exchanged glances. "And I paid for it because I said I would. But I also made some changes." Dana stared at me. What changes? I looked around the room. I canceled the upgrades you asked for. The extra decorations. The unnecessary transportation. The extended photography package. I kept the things that mattered and cut the things that didn't. Brooke looked confused. What does that have to do with Grandma? Everything. I reached into the folder beside the microphone and pulled out the confirmation papers. Next week, Eleanor is moving to a better facility. The room went completely still. I already paid the deposit. Her room is reserved. Transportation is arranged. Her care will be better and she'll have people available when she needs them. Dana's expression hardened. You did all of this without talking to me? Yes. You had no right. I looked directly at her. She needed someone to act. Dana lowered her voice. Not here, Claire. I felt another tear slide down my cheek. I spent my whole life waiting for you to care enough to do something for her. I'm not waiting anymore. Nobody applauded. Nobody rushed forward. The room simply watched. Then Brooke stood. She walked toward me slowly, her expression completely different from the one she'd worn all evening. I didn't know, she said quietly. I couldn't answer. She stopped beside me. I should have. A moment later, Aunt Patricia stood too. She came over and took my hand. You shouldn't have had to do this alone, she whispered. That broke something inside me. I covered my face with my free hand and cried. Not because I regretted what I'd said. Not because I wanted anyone's sympathy. I cried because for the first time I wasn't pretending everything was fine. Across the room, Tyler stared at the floor. Dana said nothing. And for once neither did I. I simply stood there holding Patricia's hand, while the party continued around us in complete silence. Eleanor was sitting by the window when I walked into her room, arguing with Tyler over a crossword puzzle. You're wrong, she said. I'm literally not, Tyler replied. I laughed. It was such an ordinary scene, but I had never imagined seeing the two of them together like this. Her new facility had changed everything. The rooms were brighter, the staff had time to talk to residents, and Eleanor actually looked comfortable. I still visited every Sunday, but slowly, other family members began showing up too. Aunt Patricia came regularly. Tyler started visiting awkwardly at first, then more often. Even Dad began coming on his own. One afternoon Robert called me. I went to see Grandma today, he said. I know. He paused. How? Eleanor told me. He gave a small laugh. She told me I was late. That sounds like her. He grew quiet. I should have done more. Yes, I said. You should have. For once he didn't defend himself. My own life had become quieter too. I had moved into my own apartment with Marcus, and I no longer woke up expecting another family crisis. I stopped confusing being useful with being loved. Dana eventually came to see me. She stood outside my door holding a small paper bag. I brought you something. I let her inside. She sat on the couch looking unusually nervous. I owe you an apology, she said. I waited. I handled Eleanor's situation badly. I handled you badly too. That's true. Her eyes dropped to her hands. I want us to have a relationship again. We can, I said. But it has to be different. How? I'm not going back to being the person everyone calls when they want something paid for. I won't keep quiet just to make things comfortable. Dana nodded slowly. I understand. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. For the first time it didn't matter to me. I had stopped measuring my worth by how much my family needed from me. When I walked into Eleanor's room again the following Sunday, Tyler was still there holding the crossword puzzle. She cheated, he said. Eleanor looked offended. I did not. You looked at the answers. I looked at the newspaper, which happened to be sitting beside the answers. I laughed so hard Eleanor started laughing too. I stood in the doorway for a moment watching them. I hadn't destroyed my family that night. I had simply made them see the woman they had spent years overlooking. And sometimes saying yes doesn't mean giving people what they expect. Sometimes it means finally choosing what matters.